Alright everyone, time for today's second video here. America is #1 in distrust of the media. It's funny because they frame it, link in the description, archived of course, as Americans are dead last in trusting the media. But the last? That's like a negative moniker usually. No, we're first in realizing reality. The vast majority, a supermajority of Americans have literally no trust in the legacy media. Good! It means Americans, I guess, are more intelligent than most other people in the Western world. If you trust what your media says, regardless of whether, by the way, you have a state-run, a hybrid style, or a privatized media, you're nuts. Because here's the problem. Those are still centralized structures. I talk about this often. Don't think of things in terms of left and right in the purest sense, communism versus capitalism. Ignore all of those things, basically. For the purposes of analyzing power structures, simply take into consideration how centralized and empowered they are. More centrality in power, more corruption. It's inevitable. It doesn't matter whether it's public or private. The problem is this. You look at the press throughout the world. Some nations you have a state-run press, like China. The only companies in China, the only firms in China that are allowed to print a newspaper, have a TV show where they do analysis of something, they have to be licensed directly by Jinping and the commies and operate with their will. That's the only way that they're allowed. You have like pirate radio and stuff sporadically, but it's illegal. You can be very much punished if you print a handful of magazines and they're not blessed by the Communist Party. It's like in the US, you have to register for your lemonade stand. In China, you have to register for your off-hook school magazine. Then you have countries that have a hybrid system, like the UK. The UK has the BBC, which is publicly funded, but it also has private media entities. There's licensing involved, taxes and shit, but by and large, they're technically free to speak freely. The problem is that then you get profit motive. And in a hybrid system, you have a little bit of government intervention and a little bit of private intervention into what's being said. Naturally, you're going to get tabloid spew. You're going to get that in China too, but it'll be the tabloid spew that Jinping tells you to say. In the UK, either the British government or some party there has told you to say it, or free market forces have coerced that. In the US, there is by and large a free press, literally guaranteed under the Constitution. The problem is that the government has all the money because they've appropriated all of the wealth. See, the only privileged people are those that are politically and socially connected. They run the media. The fact is that we have proof. We have releases. CNN, MSNBC, some of these companies literally take marching orders from political forces, mainly the Democrats, although the rhino cons like Mitt Romney, you know, the co-sponsor of this bipartisan infrastructure bill, by the way, they do the same thing. The neoliberal forces that control the United States government essentially control the flow of information through the media. This is why big tech is the next big arena that they're trying to censor. The internet was allowing people with views other than theirs to be promulgated. It was causing people like Ron Paul to become politically viable. Well, they'll break all the toys because they're not going to go with the neoliberal bottom line. It doesn't matter whether they're progressive, or regressive really, commies and shit like that, or whether they're like populists or libertarians. They're outside of that lame stream and they don't have the same views as the neoliberal globalist con jobs that run the show. But Americans have realized this fact. Americans now realize overwhelmingly that the corporate media is bullshit, more than any other civilized country on the face of the earth. By the way, I wonder why this could possibly be. Could it be the transparent nature of propaganda coming from them? You know, Obama repealed the anti-propaganda laws that had been passed long before. For a long time, the U.S. government was legally bound not to use the corporate U.S. media for propaganda purposes. Now, that was rescinded in the middle of Obama's term. Now, the U.S. government quite clearly uses the legacy media for propaganda. They're doing it right now. They're using the legacy media for propaganda with regards to Biden's foreign policy, with regards to the so-called insurrection on January 6th, with regards to certain medical topics that I can't even cover on a video that is put on YouTube. This is propaganda. To be clear, it's brainwashing. It's not reality. You are being lied to. That's the long and short of it. I love it when these legacy media firms pose this as a problem and say, well, Americans don't trust the media. What can we do to restore trust in the media? Well, we shouldn't have trust in the corporate press. No, corporations, you're literally a corporation. Some of you take marching orders from the legacy media. If you want to get real news without the bullshit, you should be watching people like me. I'm not being hyperbolic. Literally speaking, independent individuals who have avoided corporate contracts and entanglements, who are trying to push free speech, may not always be right. Their analysis will still be biased, but they'll tell you about that bias. Fox News leans to the right. They tend to like the rhino cons. How many of their commentators admit to that bias to their audience? Virtually none of them. CNN leans towards corporate neoliberalism. They've tried to edge in on the left-wing market, but MSNBC keeps outflanking them. And at MSNBC, do they ever admit, does Maddow ever come out and say, you know, I'm a really far-left individual, I've got my own bias, here's my analysis? No. It's projected as though it is objective in nature. It is labeled as though it is just an ironclad observable truth, even though it's bullshit. Virtually everything Maddow says is bullshit. Virtually everything that all of these people say is bullshit. It's literally just to make a paycheck, and it's always for a globalistic corporation that in some form or function works with members of the US government or other governments. Many of them are multinational. CNN operates in all sorts of other countries, and yet there are Americans that actually believe what they say and think, well, they have our best interests. They're trying to tell me the truth. They're not spinning it because some foreign government offered them money. Corporations would never do that. They're different because they call themselves the press. Let me tell you, their corporate model is identical. They are literally no different. There is literally no differentiation other than the US government issues them a press pass so that somebody can come in and ask bobblehead questions of various politicians and have more access to like Rose Garden speeches. That's the only difference. There is no other. Their corporate model is identical. Literally identical. There's no difference whatsoever. Big Tech, by the way, is still trying to prop these corpses up. Cable news, Legacymedia, newsprint, like the old tabloid magazine, like Time or something. They're trying to prop them up. YouTube, specifically. This is where I have the most experience. And I don't use Facebook anymore. Twitter's basically just a shit-posting joke at this point. I just use it to harass people, essentially. YouTube is my forte. On YouTube, me and Tim Pool and every other commentator, Razor Fist, fucking H.A. Goodman, Matt and Blonde, fucking Vaush, fucking Chris Reagan and all these other people. We're all competing with the entire Legacy Media. All of them have YouTube pages. They're given priority support. And yet if you look at their engagement levels, either as a ratio or in some cases, like look at the AP sometime in their viewership, sometimes as an absolute number, it's peanuts in comparison to what we get. And that's with YouTube directly and indirectly suppressing literally everything that we talk about. Especially in the wake of the last election. They've cracked down 10 times more since roughly this last February. Despite that fact, we're still winning. The legacy media is still losing. They are so boring, so out of touch, so obviously and transparently lying to people that even though their material is promoted cross-platform by multi-billion-dollar multinational entities with the ear of all of the Western world's legislatures, even then they're losing. This generation no longer has time to sit in front of the boob tube and watch CNN and lemming-like zone out and get spouted off propaganda filtered into their mind. They just don't care anymore. Good for them. I don't see this as a problem. It's just like when Americans don't trust the government a lot. We need to rebuild trust in government. No, fuck that. We need to build less trust in government. Nobody should trust it. Under any iteration, regardless of party, even regardless of their platform, only judge them by what they're actually doing. Don't even listen to their words. Most of them are bullshit anyway. It's just sloganeering. Look at the actions. That's how you judge them. When I look at the actions of the legacy media, I see complicity in warmongering and in stupid corporate corruption for various money-making ventures, the pushing of wokeness, the pushing of bullshit revisionism by the entire corporate media. Well, I'll judge them by their actions. They're a bunch of shithead turds, and they deserve to go out of business. They shouldn't even bother to learn to code. They should learn how to grow turnips. It'd be more useful for the world. That's about all. Peace out.